And thank you, Dr. Tong, and congratulations to the research team led by Dr. Narayan, CRC, for hosting this conference. Again, 8, time flies, doesn't it? Are we good? No, is it not here?
No, as usual, technical difficulties.
For solving the technical matter. Good morning, everyone, and salam sejahtera. I've been asked to speak about tips and tricks about oral and poster presentation. Really, I don't have any tricks. I'll be very honest about it. It's actually very hard work to do oral and poster. Trust me on that. There's been numerous occasions that you think it's easy to do, but when it really comes to the point of delivering it, you'll have your stress points. And it was really nice to see Dr. Tong's visual abstract. I remember we submitted an article to JAMA, and exactly as what you said, please also submit a visual abstract. And we had experts within the ICR to facilitate. Now, what I propose to do is to, I see, it doesn't move here. Okay. Is to go over a few points that look at your style of presentation and how you develop content, and particularly how you include text and graphics for poster and oral presentation, and then how you actually present at meeting. Actually, presenting at meeting is the least of the problem. It's how you develop it that makes it more difficult and challenging. Some of you may have come to the workshop hosted by CRC, so forgive me if you see slides are being repeated, but for those who have not yet seen some of it, it may be useful to just capture 1 or 2 slides for your own benefit. So technically, presenting a meeting, I always keep reminding this, it's a one-way thing. Dr. Tong just spoke to you all. There was hardly any question. It's always a one-way traffic. Just like doctors and pharmacists, when they treat the patients, it's a one-way traffic. So presentation is always a one-way traffic. And so you need to make your point very clear. If you can't make your point clear, then the audience will lose interest in you and what you're doing. And unlike patients who are very focused on knowing what the doctor is telling them, audience are not really focused on the speaker. And so you then go into little sleep mode and you kind of take a handphone and start to dabble with it. So remember about trying to be engaging. If you're unable to engage early, you lose the audience. Now, there are questions always asked. When do you actually do a poster? As you walk into the auditorium, you would have passed by some of the poster boards and you wonder why they chose to do a poster. Some of them, perhaps they are doing this for the first time, being asked to present an abstract or present a study. And if you do not have the fluency of the language, typically English language, it's always easier to put a poster and you disappear. So nobody knows it's you. There's no language to be, stressful. And that is sometimes actually quite correct, because it's not about your work that will make you look bad. It's about your own presentation will make you look bad, despite the work is actually quite good. So it's reasonable for those who do have difficulty with languages to look at poster as a first option. No shame in it. I've done the same. Many people do the same. The second thing about poster is that it gives you the benefit of time. Now, the poster is on display, I'm sure, from yesterday, today, and tomorrow. So 3 days. And if you think your work is so important, you want to attract new people to work with you, or you want to display it to people who are likely to collaborate with you, then posters are perfect. Because you can stand by it and talk, lunchtime, again, dinner time, maybe before next morning session. And so it gives you the benefit. So question time being longer, engagement being longer, is a benefit for those who want to display their work and gather more attention. Unlike an oral presentation, you only give them about 2 or 3 minutes to answer a question, and that's it. You lose the ability to answer more questions. Now, when would you do an oral presentation? Typically most conferences would either ask you to submit an abstract to agree to do an oral presentation, failing which will give you a poster, or some conferences will say only posters allowed. The moment they give you an oral presentation, ideally you should try for an oral presentation because you actually have a live audience. Unlike a poster where the audience need to be attracted to the poster, whereas in an oral presentation it's a live audience. And therefore it gives you the benefit of engaging people directly. Questions are sometimes spontaneous, and you have the ability to expertly answer them. Unlike a poster, if you cannot bring in the crowd to your poster, it is not attractive enough, then all your hard work is just on display and nothing else. So an oral presentation gives you the benefit. It's always good to do that. The downside is you need to be comfortable with your presentation, the language, which isn't a problem for Malaysians. Trust me on that, because you can practice. You can practice, and you must practice. If you do it well enough, there is no problem about delivering in the English language. No hesitation, really. The trouble about oral presentations, many of you perhaps may want to put too many things into one presentation. And then you cloud your delivery, you confuse the audience, and the end point is you're not sure what exactly you're trying to tell. So it's good to be very clear. If you're given only 15 minutes, how many slides can you prepare in 15 minutes to deliver a whole thesis? You can't. So you need to be very selective about what you want to tell the audience. So if you can't do that, exactly what Dr. Tong said, key messages. If you don't have the key message in your mind, then oral presentation will be a troublesome problem for many people because you're not sure exactly what is the purpose of you presenting it. Right. Coming to the main point, I think I will concur with what Dr. Tong said. It's about what exactly is your presentation about? What are you going to focus on? So for most scientific presentation, I mean, where there's no abstract, a visual abstract is still delivering a key message, but it has to provide two things, clarity and impact. So I think the obesity work on the drug, the impact is about whether, if you're non-diabetic, you lose weight. I think that is the impact, the outcome. Likewise, any presentation must have that. You must be clear in what you're trying to tell or what you have done, and you must be very clear what you have done has an impact. And if you don't do that effectively, then you lose your opportunity to present it well. So how do we do it? Just to remind ourselves, a presentation for a conference is a scientific presentation. You're presenting facts. You're presenting things that are data-based. It is not philosophical. It is not, conversational. So there is a structure. And I think it's very important that all of us learn this structure. And it's helpful to stick to this structure. And for that purpose, there are many models and modules. You can go through this. But simply put together, you must have a study aim or purpose. There must be a method. The results are obvious from the methods you have chosen to do. And the discussion and conclusion will have some implication and impact. I think that structure, theoretically and practically for almost all scientific presentation and clinical research is consistent. There are some journals may vary a little bit. But overall, I think about 90% of journals, presentation conferences stick to this, that the structure is consistent. Right. So let's look how do you actually prepare a poster. So again, going back to what Dr. Tong said, when you read an article or you have prepared a paper, you have done some study, you have yet to publish it, but you have the data. The first thing is to draft 2 or 3 key findings. You need to draft it. Why do I say you need to draft? Unless you write it, the word doesn't stick in your mind. You have to write it. So, and that is your language. That language that you are comfortable. So in a nutshell, until and unless you initiate a write-up of some sort, it is very, very difficult to construct a proper oral or poster presentation. You have to physically write it, whether you type it or... I personally take a pen and paper. We are old school, I believe. It was easier for me to write something first. I'll scribble here. I write something there, scribble there, and then I'll circle here, circle there, and then, that is something of a sentence. The next thing is you must prepare visuals. Again, Dr. Tong, I think you started it really well by trying to identify what attracts the audience, what attracts the reader, what attracts the viewer. So you need to prepare visuals. And visuals for presentations are not easy because they're key visuals. It's not every visual. So what are the key visuals? The key visuals are typically charts, graphs, images, flow diagrams, and you have to create it. Of course, there are many tools you can use, but you have to prepare it. And where does that preparation come from? It comes from the work you have done, the data you have collected, how you have undertaken a study, the design of the study. So all of this can be visualized, and you need to create these visuals. Not easy, it is an exercise, but it is something that is relevant and necessary. Next is, how do you actually start doing a poster? Many of us, easily, you can use a template. Templates are available online, free, sometimes. Some comes with a little bit of a recognition. CRC provides this free. You can engage CRC, HKL, or any of the CRCs. They'll give you a template. You can then start to modify and add things into it. Or you design your own poster. I typically use PowerPoint. You can also use Canva. But PowerPoint is actually very versatile. It's quite robust, and it's quite easy to adapt. Now, I tend to advocate these 5 C's. This is not me, but it's coming out of what people do all the time. First and foremost, you need to comply with the conference guidelines. So read what they want you to present. Read. Poster size, language, the style, the format. All of those things must be very clear. And so you have to read it so that you comply with their requirements. You can't produce a poster bigger than their display board. Then, have you gone to some conferences? There are these posters, they go from 2 boards. You've seen that. And you have some displays that are using digital that somehow doesn't capture the whole poster, or a section of it appear, and then you got to move it around, up, down, left, right, center, twist it here, because you have not complied with the guidelines. So you need to look at the guidelines, very clear. And if you're sending an oral presentation, likewise, they will tell you in what format, whether it's PowerPoint, 3x4, 16x9, whatever. You have to follow the guideline. That is the first part. Second bit, which is really important for you, is whether your presentation is catchy. Can it attract somebody? No point working over 2 years to do a study. At the end of the day, when you present it, nobody bothers to even look at your title. They look, and have you seen this? You know, the disappointment that suddenly comes into you. You know, you work very hard, put the poster there, and people just walk past it, you know. They don't even take a second glance. It's not your work. It's perhaps the way it's displayed. It's not catchy enough. And so you need good visuals, strong visuals, and you also need good titles. You need to be concise. Language needs to be tighter. I'll go through this a bit later. You need to be very clear, a logical flow. That means from aim to conclusion must be very clear. And typically, the clarity comes from either having a chronological flow or a methodological flow. So you have to stick to that and try to have it clutter-free. Clutter-free means you need ample white space. Background needs to be white or light color so that whatever you've written becomes obvious. So this is a template. I think in some of the CRCs, I'm sure I've shared this before. It's editable. This was prepared when we were at Sungai Buloh. You can actually put in little components. What I would want to share with you is once you have a template, each of those sections that you have, sorry, I can't, here like abstract, method, introduction, result. Each of those sections, you prepare it separately. You do not do it on the template itself. Don't go and delete it and start typing. Don't do that. Prepare your write-up in a separate document. That means introduction is one document. Methodology is one document. Results is a separate document. Conclusion is a separate document. You do all your addition, correction, checks, and whatever there, and finally you decided this is it, then copy and paste. Is it clear? Do not go and start working on the template because the structure will run, and then all the grid lines will change, and it becomes a little bit more messy for those people who are using templates. So remember that. And this is quite clear how to use it. If you're using your own design, so open PowerPoint, and you go to Design tab. If you click the Design tab, you should have the heading similar to what I've shown. And all you have to do is choose one slide, and you custom it. You click to custom. Then you select the width and the height of that one slide. Okay, that will become your final slide. And Microsoft will ask you, the PowerPoint will ask you whether you want to maximize or ensure fit. Just click Ensure Fit. That's all. There's the 2 steps you have to do. So you open one PowerPoint, set the size to the maximum of what the organizer wants you to do, and then whether portrait or landscape, and then Ensure Fit. Is it clear? So it's a very straightforward thing to do in PowerPoint. And once you have done that, you can create all these boxes in that one slide. You can put a title box. You can put an introduction box. In fact, all these little words are typed in. You can design yourself. And you can align it. You can use grid lines to center it, to have the upper left and the bottom right all leveled off. And from within which you can start to, again, copy and paste your corrected text. So if you return your introduction, you corrected it, you copy and paste. So you can either use a template or you make your own design. I typically will make my own poster because it gives me the flexibility of changing things. Some of you may find it difficult to start with, but actually it's quite easy once you get used to it. So what's a poster design layout? How do you actually design a poster? A poster needs to be very clean in its appearance. It has to have a clean background. If you look at the posters out there, ideally you want to be able to read it from about 3 to 6 feet away. You don't want someone to be as close as 1 foot in front of the poster, 3 to 6 feet away. So what can you type into a poster size presentation that you can read from 3 to 6 feet away? So your text needs to be quite large. They can't be small. It's not like having a paper publication where someone has to read the journal, but this is about display. So in the sections created, you need to have them at a certain size, readable. So if you're unable to produce a poster with a readable distance, with a size, then you have too much of text or too much of graphics. Then you have to keep on editing. So that's how you will develop it. Now, there is a convention for any of these posters. It's how we all read. So most of us read top to bottom or left to right. So if you arrange your sections left to right, then top left, bottom right is introduction, conclusion. If you read top to bottom, introduction, conclusion. So there is a convention for this. Do not arrange it in a manner that is disorganized. Introduction, conclusion, discussion, methodology. That's not how we read. So it's always important to have a flow, left to right or top to bottom. And like I said earlier, you can arrange it in a grid system. Poster design, this typically for most conferences, 3x4, you will have a digital equivalent for this. Use a large font which are sharp in line angles like Arial, Helvetica, or Calibri, or Times New Roman. There are good font sizes, very sharp lines. So when you print it out or when you display it, the lines are sharp. The text looks sharp, so it's very important. Have some good visuals, bar charts and flow charts. You can use many of those medical illustrator software. I think Dr. Tong mentioned a little bit. If you can go into some of the medical illustrators, they do have, not Canva. I'm not talking about Canva. I'm not talking about AI generated. These are professionally done medical illustrators. They have many free sessions. They teach you how to create illustrations. Absolutely very sharp, medically trained people. And they give you good background for this. For text use, high contrast, meaning you want dark words, light background. It's also seen to be more medical to have something very contrasting, dark and light. That's what it is. Content, totally for a whole poster about maybe 350 to 500 words. 350 to 500 words. I mean, introduction 100, methodology about 100. You see, you add up 100, you get about 500 words. Also good to create your own QR code in the event you want to have a printout for an abstract or your poster. So you can just link to a QR code and get your abstract. It's much more convenient rather than printing it. So what do you do in a poster? I'm just going to go through this example. Maybe you can take a snapshot of this. The first thing is you need to have title and authors. And for this purpose, for all of you who are young researchers, establish your authorship name. Establish your authorship name. This is something that you live with and you die with. So that even if you die, people actually reference you by your authorship. So have an authorship name. Whether it's one paper, two papers, doesn't matter. So this is my authorship name. Peariasamy is my authorship name. I don't use any other name. So anytime there's a search, my name will appear under that particular authorship. And a lot of these authorship are linked to databases, and they link to your work and your profile. I think Dr. Tong mentioned that AI created her profile because of authorship. That name becomes relevant. So think about what is your authorship. Most of you use a surname. Some of you will have some sort of a difficulty because surnames are sometimes replicated, taken up already, so you don't have that name. So play around until you get the right authorship and stick to that name until, you die. You die and people remember you by your authorship, yeah? Your institution is important and your contact details, typically emails. So 100 words for introduction and the methods. Results, typically 150 words, including 1 or 2 visuals. Discussion and conclusion of 100 words. And reference, about 3 to 5 references. So the references are typically 1 or 2 in the introduction, 1 or 2 in the discussion. So you'll find about 4 to 5. For a presentation, you're not talking about full paper here. For a presentation, key references, about 3 to 5 is more than sufficient. And some acknowledgement for your department or your DG or some approval, and ethics approval and such. So how do you develop content? It's very easy to say, well, I'm just going to speak for 12 minutes, and it's just a poster for 3 days. You think it's easy, but it's not. Unless you publish your own work, many of you rely on other people's work. You know what I mean? You rely on other people's work. You have an idea, you have seen something, you have done something, but you have not published it. If you have published it, it's very easy. You extract your work and you display it. You are confident because you have published it. You have not, then it is very challenging. You have to develop the content. So maybe you've seen a case, or you've seen a few case series, or you've seen a cohort of patients. You've analyzed the data, and you think you're ready to publish it, but you have not come to the point. So you have to develop content. And if you don't develop content, the audience will know that you're not referencing current literature, they're unable to discuss with you, they're unable to ask you questions. So you have to develop content. And so the content that you develop must be around those subject matter or the key messages you have. So it has to revolve around that key message. What is a key message? So anything around that key message is what you develop. Don't go and take too many things out of the literature and try to pack it into your presentation. So for that purpose, you need to be very clear. So you define your central message. What exactly is it? Like earlier, I think it was about whether for non-diabetics, can you achieve weight loss using some form of intervention? That's the key message. And the answer is yes. There's a model of answering that question. That's the key message. Somebody would ask Dr. Tong, can try the peptide, is it? Right, can it achieve weight loss in obese patients? She'll say yes, because our study showed we did this over that period, and 30 words. In her mind, she will have that 30 words. So you need to develop that kind of model in which you have found out, this is what I'm trying to do here. And unless you know what you are trying to tell and do here, it's very difficult to convey the message. So very important that you develop a key message. I've shown this slide before. This I presented at a research meeting in Oxford. I was in Sungai Buloh. I got the privilege to submit an article. It was accepted for an international meeting. And this was a poster we designed. I designed it while I was here and had it presented. Now, don't look at the poster, but look at the key message. The key 30 words there, perhaps, was someone would ask me about what exactly this study is about. Well, all I have to tell, well, you can use, molars are the back teeth. You can use root stages to determine if a person has achieved a certain age threshold. And if the wisdom tooth is mature, you're likely to be 18. If the second molar tooth is immature, you're likely to be less than 16. Simple message. But there's a whole study there. 1,000 over patients were retrieved. We had x-rays. We had to categorize them. We had to look at the entry point, the exit point. That's the data. But in reality, I'm just trying to convey this message. So someone would ask me, how important is this study? I can very quickly tell, just by using molar root stages, we can determine age thresholds. Simple question, simple answer. So you have to develop that ability to have some form of central message. Now, for that purpose, science has given you the guide. IMRED is actually the way forward. So if you look at the scientific journals and literature, you'll find that there is a certain element of abstract. Abstract is a tiny bit of the whole study. You'll have a prevailing understanding of a subject. It will narrow down to a question, and that is introduction. So in introduction, you start broadly, and you narrow down to a hypothesis, and that's your question. So if you're doing an oral or poster presentation, you need to have that kind of a mindset. This is the understanding about this subject. We think this is the problem, and that's why we're doing the study. You narrow it down to a single question. Methodology and results are usually static. I mean, unless you're developing your own method, most of us use other people's method, right? Or published methods. So they are very clear. So you can just reference to say methodologies by so-and-so. I followed NHMS or whatever. This is how we have done, or the study by, as described by so-and-so. So methodologies are quite constant. Results. How far can you go away from your study objective? So if you stated that this is my study objective 1, this is my study objective 2, your results are also going to be result of study objective 1, result of study objective 2. You don't create unnecessary results when you only got 2 objectives. So that's what it means. It's static. So methodology and results are often static. And then discussion. You start from the simple point. What did your study show? And then you develop the discussion, and finally you come to a conclusion. And that's what it means. So you have this little funnel shape that is inverted for the purpose of discussion. Conclusion is upright for introduction and method. You converge to the middle, and that is the central part of the report. So if you look from top to bottom, there's about 30%, 30%, 30%. Introduction is about 30%. Methods and results about 30%. And discussion, conclusion about 30%. Then the remaining space in the poster will go to acknowledgement and references. Yeah. So that's how you get about 100% coverage. So how do you do, literature review for a poster or oral presentation? Easy to say, but not that easy, because what you really want is 1 or 2 key references only. You're not here writing a thesis, There's no space for 10 references. 1 or 2. So you must find the best of the best. 1 or 2, because everyone would have at least referenced that particular work. And so it gives you an idea about what you're trying to achieve in your study. So the background of the study is based on your literature review. And then you write the review. How do you write it? I always tell people, you must have an idea why you have done your study, have that mindset, but it has to tailor it to the objective with the related literature to support your work, and then define your study, whether it's observational or interventional, and then have a clear statement on the problem that you have found out or you wanted to investigate. So you finish your introduction by saying the objective of this study was to. All right? Remember, you have finished your study, therefore the language is past tense. Past tense, was to. You already finished your study, yeah? So think about the language too, because as I said earlier, presentation is presenting science, facts. as if it's written. It is not a talk show, you know what I mean? So you have to be precise, and people will have that recorded and reproduced. So do not use language that is not appropriate. Huh? So how do you, sorry. So I always mention it's easy to frame a question using PICO, which is population or patient, intervention or comparisons and outcomes. It's easy to do that. I've shown this recently at a workshop. Depending on your study design, you can create a question. At the bottom here, you can see, does type 2 diabetes among older men affect stroke risk compared to non-diabetic? It has elements of PICO. Elements of PICO. Population is there. The outcome is there, and the comparisons is there. So you can summarize a lot of PICO elements in that one statement. Now, why do you need to develop a statement, a question, that is precisely trying to fit in PICO? And the answer is actually how you then search for it. How do you then search for these key references? It has to come from somewhere. So until and unless you have a nice framework of a question, you can't develop this straight away. So just by looking at the question earlier, type 2 diabetes, increased stroke risk in older men, you then have to develop a model of searching for evidence. And this is how we do scientific research and studies. You need to develop a search strategy. Now, typically for those of you coming to present at major meetings, don't forget that your teachers are there, your supervisors are there, your professors are there. You are basically their, downline, and it's always very good to be seen as doing things properly. I'm sure they would have taught you in medical school and research facilities, how do you do a proper search? Don't just pick something and just produce it, do it yourself. So learn how to use medical subject heading. So, for example, stroke is just not stroke. There's also cerebrovascular accident. Type 2 diabetes is just not one, it's diabetes mellitus. So these are search terms that you have to learn to use. Go and look for it, and then use Boolean connectors, use and or not. The workshop CRCs will conduct how you do medical search. And for those who are going to present in meetings, don't present data that is like 20, 30 years ago. You filter it. You bring it to the last 5 years, maybe even recent. The shortest would be about 5 years. And then look for good publication. That means you want evidence that is highest of the scale, systematic reviews, meta-analysis. You want that kind of data. And so you then use that to filter your literature, and then you generate it. Now, it's also important for those of you who eventually may want to publish your work, record your model, or how you search it, so that you use it in your publication. So if you have not published your work, doing this work is actually a step towards publishing. And we found this out. I think we did a study, Mohan, correct me if I'm wrong, we did a study, didn't we? CRC decided to do a study on, people who came to the national conference, how many of them actually eventually published it? We found that those people who presented, I think we had about 20% conversion rate within the first year and 30% conversion rate within the second year, I think something like that. So it's good. So the conversion rate is you're taking a presentation to a full publication. So this is the work you have done. It's easy to publish. If you haven't done this, then you'll forget your presentation, end of your story, and next cycle you present again something else. Lost work, So the other thing is, don't just go to PubMed and search. Use medical data databases as search engines. These are a lot faster, a lot more sharper. So I would typically use a TRIP medical database. For those of you who use a handphone, just search for it, TRIP medical database. If you haven't used it before, very versatile, very practical. The other is Abstimonicus, again, very practical for those who are looking at evidence-based literature. Semantic Scholar is actually quite good because it gives you a lot of other publications that are not captured in the typical medical journals. And Jane Author, also on biosemantics, give you a lot of authorship. And so I'll show you some examples. So if you search PubMed, you put in the stroke and cerebrovascular accident, and these are the Boolean connectors, and diabetes, and males, and men, or men. So you learn how to use this. You will then get a hit, it'll tell you. So as I said, on the left-hand side, you see the filters. So you're going for a conference, try not to just take any reference. Take something more recent, 1 year ago, at least 5 years. So filter it. And you can also sort it out by many things, by the quality, whether there's an abstract, and so on and so forth. So you can filter it, and you'll get the hit. This is using PubMed. PubMed has something close to, 38 million maybe? So it's, if you don't filter it, it's going to take you a laborious effort trying to do all this work. So this is TRIP medical database. Again, I find this a very useful tool. And it incorporates PICO. And it has an advanced PICO now. So you can put in your PICO and type it in, and it can generate your outcome. Again, you can filter it by whether you want systematic reviews, case studies, guidelines, whatever. You filter it, and then you can develop the data. Epistemic is very much more for evidence-based practice and policy questions, so which is not often found in trials. And so for those of you doing such work, again, you can use this. It will again hit some other elements of literature, and then again, you can filter it by a year, 5 years. So most of the search engines are very consistent. They have a certain filter system, is to enable you to actually advance your research very quickly rather than going through like a PubMed search one by one, one by one, one by one. You don't need to do that. You're busy people. Use search engines from medical database. Semantic Scholar, like I said, it has a wider catch. Simple search strategy will give you enough literature. Like for example here, again, some relevant studies will come. The good thing about Semantic Scholar, it also gives you articles that are retrievable. So you can see there's a PDF. So don't just read abstracts and you think that is the evidence. You actually have to read the paper. Remember, you are talking at a meeting or presenting a paper or putting an abstract based on facts that are shown to be true to you. You've read it. Don't just copy somebody and put in there and then found there's no such reference. So abstract is one thing, looking for the paper is another thing. Yeah? So Semantic Scholar will give you the paper, so you can retrieve the paper. You can do the same thing with Google Scholar. I think many of you are very familiar with Google Scholar. You can search under Google Scholar, type 2 diabetes, stroke, little hyphens around it, so that you search according to the search terms. You'll hit the paper. Again, Google Scholar will give you papers. A shortcut, this is a little trick I learned. Now, some journals have paywalls. That means when you go and search for the full journal, it will say either you apply through your institution or you have to pay for it, or you have to subscribe to something. Have you seen this? Right? So the thing about Google Scholar, there's a cheat machine inside it. Don't quote me on this. So if you look carefully, at the bottom of each line, you can see save site, cited by, related articles, and all versions. The key is in the all versions. Keep clicking the all version. One of it will have a full paper. Most of the time. Because these versions are not in the journal. Sometimes these versions are parked in the institution. So maybe Dr. Norain will publish a paper, and her paper is parked in Putrajaya Hospital. Thank you. It's parked in Putrajaya Hospital because she's contributed, or that she has parked it in NIH. Sorry. So unknown to the journal, she's parked it at Putrajaya Hospital, or she's parked it in NIH, and then you're searching for her publication. The AI search engine will pick up NIH because there's no barrier, there's no paywall here, and pull the article. Do you see what it does? So that's how these versions, all versions, the more the version, the more likely you see the full paper. So that's the thing is a trick. No power. Oh, good. So for those of you who cannot retrieve full paper, go to Google Scholar and look at versions, keep clicking. One of it often is a full paper. Don't quote more images, they may buy you. The next thing is whether you can generate the write-up using generative AI. I think you mentioned this. Now, generative AI chatbots have taken over writing. And there's so many simple models. Google has Gemini, I think, Gemini. They also have a co-pilot to guide you. ChatGPT is very popular. DeepSeek is new, is challenging ChatGPT. There's also Grok. I think Grok is by, so you can, all these are generative AI. They do not replace actual articles. They are just guiding you. No harm in using it, don't get me wrong. No harm in using a generative AI or chatbot because it gives you an idea about how it synthesizes something, all right? So this is created by Gemini, asking the same question about type 2 diabetes in men and stroke. So just asking the question, does type 2 diabetes among older men affect stroke risk? I got the little thing, so she's guiding me. So, can I work here? It doesn't work here. Does it work here? So that's a question. And so Gemini, which is created by Google, gives you the write-up. Yes, increased risk, mechanism, and also it can give you the journal where it's quoted from. So, your search engines are now tied to AI. So, it's very easy to retrieve information. And so ChatGPT are likewise. Like here is Gemini. They're very powerful search tools. Don't copy it word for word. Journals and some conferences, they'll run through your abstract. They will highlight this is AI generated and flag you. Once you're flagged, it's not illegal. Once they flag you, it's very difficult to find yourself unflagged. So try not to copy word for word. You can modify, use proper language. This is by ChatGPT, same question, a narrative. So you say it sounds like interested how diabetes and stroke affect older men. So it gives you, as if you're talking to you, right, isn't it not? So if you remember, I started by saying language should not be a problem. This is why it's not a problem. If you memorize line for line, word for word, practice over 3 months, you're the expert. There's no problem in language. You can memorize it, read it. That's what many people do now. They just read it and understand, because this is a conversational language, narrative. And so by using generative AI, you can actually generate your own delivery. And that's how things have changed. This is by Grok, DeepSeek. Same question, but I've taken it into a different level. Under Grok, you can have a deep search. A deep search not only generates a narrative, it generates evidence. This is evidence created artificially intelligence, AI. So it gives an overview of risk factors, mechanism, importance of management, and the whole thing, where it browse, the browsing history, plus the key points is generated. So entire poster and oral presentation designed for you. That's what it means. So it can help you guide along the way how to generate your presentation. Of course, you need to modify, and not only that, it can even produce charts for you. Created. References. This is the trick. Yeah, so you can almost now start writing your introduction based on what has been produced. So that's in a way shortcutting the whole system, because you already have a chart, evidence chart, created by AI. It's not by anything else. Just by asking the simple question, type 2 diabetes, older men and stroke, and you do a deep search for evidence, the strength of it, and that's what it produces. So if you imagine, if you want to present it now, it's not that difficult. Not that difficult. You can modify, you can put some colors, and you can play around with it. You can put, including the stats. You see, the statistics is there. So not wrong, but don't copy, because it's not science entirely. You need to, of course, be discriminative, be able to see what is necessary for your presentation. Okay? So I'm not going to dwell too much into this, ChatGPTs and DeepSeek and Grok and Gemini, but yes, you'll see more frequently the application of using AI to develop presentations. So it's not only necessary to see the abstract and read through the evidence, you also need to have the original article with you. So don't go to a conference without having read the paper. You'll have a smart person in the audience who may be the author, you know, and they stand up and ask the question, have you read my paper? And you think you quoted me, but you quoted me wrongly. It's happened to me. And I remember reading the paper, and I can't remember the author, I told him. And I said, I can't remember you, but maybe you're one of the authors. It's how I interpreted the paper, but he actually challenged me openly. And so it's good to say that I read the paper. If I have not read the paper, the embarrassment would have been on me. I was on stage. It happened in India, and I can't forget that day in my life, and I say, oh my God. But thankfully, I read the paper. So what I'm trying to tell you is you're only going to quote what? 5 references? Read the 5 papers. That's all. You don't have to read the whole literature, the 5 papers. Just read it. So that when you are quoting those 5 references, you are well cleared of all those things you have quoted. That's it. 5 papers means 5 references. You read it. Don't just read the abstract and go. So, lesson. Read and go. So thankfully I read, and that was useful. There are many journals that offer access freely. The most versatile one is the DOAJ, Directory of Open Access Journal. This is supported by many countries. It's parked in Europe. There's also the Geneva Foundation for those of you who want free journals. Please take a picture of this, because not often you find free journals. Take a picture of this. And then there are free medical journals. Of those, really, the DOAJ is perhaps one of the best. Springer has, under BMC, some journals that are freely made available. So I'm just going to share a few slides of where you can access these free journals. So the DOAJ is very good. You'll find, 11 million articles are there? Free, yeah? Most of them are free. 1 or 2 maybe not fully, but most of the journals are free. These are open access journals. You know, people have paid for the publication or supported. And you can search under the field. It doesn't give you the article until you search for it. This is why your search terms are very important. Remember, I started with one slide. You must know your search terms. If you do not know your search terms, then you don't get the right articles. So search according to the terms. And so you'll get a hit. And then you can then devise a subject area of interest. If you're doing medicine, you pick medicine. You're doing pharmacy, you pick drugs. If you're doing dentistry, you pick dentistry. And then the list of journals will appear that are free, available to you. So that's what it means. So the subject on the left-hand side, you see all the subjects appear. You click it, then all the journals under the particular subject will be made available. So if you click medicine, and these are the list of journals available. Just on medicine. This is just all the journals. And you click diabetes, see? Whole lot of journals. So the DOAJ is a very good database for journals for you to go and search. Springer has, under the BMC, I think CRC used to pay for some of the publication in the past, but we have stopped it now. But again, they have given open access journals access to some of those journals. You can search under BMC, and there are a whole list of conditions under medicine and public health. You can go and search under those headings. The other I mentioned recently in one of the workshops is Med Archives. Med Archives are where people park their papers before it's published. So it's not fully published, made available. We have tested it during COVID a few times, and after that we stopped it because you get all sort of supportive and non-supportive feedback. And sometimes it's good to take the feedback, but some journals don't like you to have it pre-exposed. So, but those articles will remain there. So you can, in the full article and the paper, sometimes only very little changes. So the Med Archives still give you access for a lot of journals that you can read about. Again, you can search for it. And then we have our NIH, Ministry of Health. I don't know how many of you have accessed this. Have you all accessed this? You need to register as you need to register. You belong to MOH, please use this website, full of databases and journals, subscribed by the ministry, paid for, but underutilized. Unfortunately, you can search for journals, databases, and you look at the subscribed databases. Quite a bit subscribed. I'm not sure whether you have actually accessed this. Almost all the local publications go to my journal. So anyone who publishes locally, the my journal will extract it and keep it there. There's also a Malaysian citation index. So you want to know who's a Malaysian champion for endocrinology, you know who it is. You have to go to citation. They will generate for you, right? So it's a good website to go and explore, but you need access. So register yourself and use it. It also allows you, I don't know, sometimes when you want to publish a paper, sometimes you can ask for a reduction in publication fee because it is already subscribed by the Ministry of Health. You know, your email is MOH, it has a buy-in, you know, so. Okay, so once you have got all your literature, you have read the 5 papers, read the 5 papers, then you need to evaluate what I'm going to put in the introduction that makes sense for my study. So you really have to start evaluating the literature. You wonder why I'm going to present a poster for 5 minutes and yet have to do all this hard work. But in reality, because you are presenting science, data, and facts, it is not something you just create and produce. You stick to the 3 words, science, data, and facts. So you really have to evaluate it, read, look at the article, look at the relevance, assess the statistical significance, then you'll pull 1 or 2 key references that you think would be useful. And to do that, for those of you who are not familiar, you can use grading tools. Those who are familiar, you know what's a grading tool. If you are good with statistics, the strengths of odds ratio or hazard ratio or p-value or your coefficient, whatever, that you are strong at it, fine. You don't need grade. But for those of you who are not familiar with it, it's good to use grade. It tells you what would be seen as low in the confidence scale and what is very high on the confidence scale. And so you can grade it. There's a tool system available. You can look it up and learn about grade, particularly in how you evaluate strength of evidence. And then once you've got that strength, these are the 2-3 papers I want to use, then only you structure your introduction. How long did it take for you to come here? Maybe, 2 days or 3 days of work. Searching, looking up, searching, looking up. Then you graded it. Then you think, okay, now on the 3rd day, I'm going to write the introduction. So about 3 days often of preparation to just come to the introduction, the method, and then write up. So typically 3 days. Why 3 days? You work 8 to 5. By the time you go home, tea time, you have 1 hour. Then if you're a housewife, unfortunately prepare dinner for home. You're a husband watching TV for 1 hour. Then dinner time, I only got 1 hour before bedtime. So you don't have much time, you know. I don't know whether you all realize it. Work sometimes is so taxing. You're so tired. You don't have that time as like a postgrad. You can sit in front of a computer the whole day and work. Those of you come from a working environment, you go through the cycle of trying to recover from work and then trying to do some write-up poster, next day got to think about a patient, admission, drug, discharges, all the head. You don't have the peace of mind to synthesize proper write-up. 3 days. Reasonable. Then write the abstract. Remember how many words? 100 words only. Trying to create 100 words for 3 days. Then start to write it. Put a simple introduction. Create a main body. Interpret the evidence. What are the limitations of studies you have used? And then 1 or 2 references. Then you are ready to finish the introduction. The methods, as I said, is static. You just say which method you use is very straightforward. You would not have done a study without a method in hand, so you're not going to invent a method at that point in time. The method's already done. You just have to know how to write it. So the literature will help you guide you how to write your method. That's all. You're not inventing a method. That's how studies are. So methods should be very straightforward. Have an idea about what's the design? Is it observational, cohort, interventional, questionnaire-based, or whether it is retrospective, prospective, whatever, and have the subjects, how many of them, how they enroll, inclusion, exclusion criteria, what protocol you use. Is quite straightforward because you've already done it. If you have a questionnaire, just mention the questionnaire by instrument, don't have to describe it, put it into reference, and don't forget ethical consideration. And I think many of you forget about this, but no presentation goes without ethics approval. Whether it is in the form of ethics being said, look, we don't need to have a full ethics. It's just to say that you can waiver consent, but you still need ethics. All right? So there will be some form of approval by your institution or by the Ministry of Health that must be captured. That means you have done properly. You are a scientific person because you follow science rules, meaning you have cleared ethics and state it. It is a pride to state that you have done ethically a study. So quote a number, have that reference. Writing the results is not that difficult because it's only 1 or 2 points, is it not? It's not the whole paper. So just write the results for the 2 or 3 points you wish to mention. Aim 1, this is the result. Aim 2, this is the result. For aim 1, this was the study method. Aim 2, this is the study method. These are the results. Maybe extra on graphics or something, but overall it's quite straightforward. Discussion and conclusion. Well, remember the inverted funnel? You start by saying what you found and discuss your result. Compare your result with other people's finding. 1 new reference comes in. Because now you're comparing, right? 1 new reference coming. Maybe you want to dispute, agree, another reference comes in. So 2 references. And then you conclude. So totally 4 or 5 references for a presentation, whether you do a poster or whether you do a oral. Enough. You don't need more than that. And have a take-home message. Take-home message is, the end of the day, anybody asks you, did all this thing, blah, blah, blah. Can you lose weight by taking medication? Yes. Take-home message. But you need a doctor to prescribe, not on your own. Second message. Yeah, that's what it means. So take-home message is very important. Write it down, write your references properly. Typically learn how to use APA or Harvard. This is still a standard. If you do not know how to reference it, there are reference managers, like you can use Mendeley. Some of you go and search in Mendeley. It will tell you what is the exact way the reference is presented. Or you can go to, this is Mendeley, you can go and look it up. Or you can go to EndNote, you can also search for it. They will tell you exactly how the reference is. So don't create your own references, because these references are all in a database, all right? So use that and reproduce it. Paper in hand, reference in your presentation, that's all. Now putting it on paper. This comes the challenge. Remember 100 words, 100 words, 100 words, 150 words. So you do all your addition there. You edit outside, finalize, then copy and paste. So 50 to 100 words is not that difficult to edit. That's what many people think. But it's not that straightforward, because you need to have a style in writing. We call it scientific style. You need to write to a certain style. And it's not, I always say it's not literary writing. Literary writing is reading a novel. Scientific writing is about facts and data. So you really need to write it properly. One of the most important part is to learn how to write it in an active style. Many of us are very passive in the way we write. Active style, I've given you 2 simple examples. The patient had a dressing versus the dressing was placed on the patient. Same thing, isn't it? Which one is better? The first one. This is what it means, active style. So to come to that point, you really need to learn a few basic things about language. No, I'm not going to teach you language here. But you learn to appreciate some proper language. Learn whether it's American language or English language for whatever conference you're going to. Stick to that language for that conference or that publication. So you submit to NEMJ or JAMA. All our terminology has to be in American format. You are submitting the abstract to a British journal. It has to be all in British language or Anglican language. So you don't mix things up. And reviewers hate it. Conferences hate it. So you want to have language that fits that particular theme. So just remember simple thing like hematoma, HAE, hematoma. There's no A in the American style, or amoeba, that kind of AE is a mess, but we are so used to it. We use interchangeably. Pathological and pathologic, they same thing, but just that you need to understand this language. Next thing is don't overwrite. We call it writing too much. We are very good at writing too much. Too much. I think those people who work with me will understand. Each time it comes to my table, you see a lot of red marks going out of the table rather than blue marks. Because you write too much. Too much because you do not know how to use the right term to express that language, right? So learn how to write in simple, straightforward words. Avoid a flowery, unnecessary word. I give you an example. Oh, it has frozen. Is it moving? Okay. Okay, so next slide, please. Let me see whether it works. Okay, so this is simplified. It may look very simple to many of you, but remember, only 100 words. You cannot have 200 words there. So you must find mechanism to reduce words. So reduction of word doesn't just happen. You have to think through what would be the best word to describe. So it looks simple, by means of. It sounds very nice. We did this study by means of weighing every patient. Yeah, I say, we weighed everyone with the weighing machine. With single term is sufficient. So you have to learn to appreciate single terms to express long words. This is what it means to be brief in the way you write. This was a real case of, I think, a pharmacist in one of the workshops. They gave this particular term. I said, how to simplify it? This is simplified. Read both. The red is cancelled. And so when you write an introduction or discussion, you have to think like this. Keeping the message constant, keep the message constant, but you remove unnecessary flowery word. Put in proper terms to read. So if you read both, you realize the corrections improve the clarity without changing the meaning of it. Okay? I've shown this in many workshops. This comes out from a proper publication. In reality, that is all you need to write, the last two lines. If you read the top and bottom, they mean the same. They mean the same. So imagine you're trying to write in an introduction or putting a slide. You don't want the first paragraph. You just want the two lines at the bottom. That's what it means to be very brief, but keep the narrative. So if you're doing an oral presentation, I'll keep the two lines on my slide, but what am I going to speak? I'm going to speak the first one. So I find time to speak. I'm not going to read the bottom. I'll speak the top. But I don't need to print the top just because I'm going to speak the same thing. So learning how to use this is important. This we did recently. I don't know who co-authored this paper with me. But when we came to my table, this is what happened. So this is how you need to do. Sit down, clean up your article, what you're going to put it out there. Someone's going to read your work. Somebody's going to take a photograph of your work. Somebody's going to reproduce it in a journal. Take time. It's your name, your authorship, your name. Take pride in the work. So I remember sitting down and over the weekend, and this is just first round of correction, haven't finished correction. But if you read through the number of times I would have crossed out, blank this and blank that, working through the work to make it tighter, tidier. And this is what you need to do. Whether you do oral presentation, remember each document for introduction, for methods, discussion, this is what you have to do. Put it there and do all the corrections. Clean it up until you're happy. Then you transfer it. You see what the process is all about? It's not simple just putting something on a poster and publish it. It's not that way. Now, I know a lot of people will find that very challenging, so it's easier you use Grammarly now. That is the tip. So if you're not good with the language, then please, by all means, use Grammarly. You go and tidy up, okay? But don't forget, how does Grammarly work? Each time you put something, it'll take your knowledge and keep it there. It doesn't give up. What you type in goes inside there. It doesn't give up. So be careful of not putting in names, institution, so that terminology will remain inside. So make sure you put some anonymous name so that any correction happens is not related to you, right? All these AI tools will capture it. Huh? It's not showing you, but it's there. So whenever you want to use AI tools, make sure you don't have your personal identifiers or patient identifiers because it's captured. That's how they'll learn, okay? So for those who are familiar, Grammarly, it has limitations, but it gives you some benefit of language. I also like this, Ref and Write. Ref and Write, particularly for proofreading, academic proofreading. For those of you who find it difficult in putting yes, is, was, there, comma, hyphen, academic proofreading is done very well by a Ref and Write. So you can use it. Are we supposed to take a break? Or can I continue? Take a break, yeah? So let me see what's next. Yeah, so maybe take a break here. Take a break. So Ref and Write is good for those of you because it gives you academic proofreading. Not many softwares do academic proofreading. Academic proofreading is actually very expensive. If you give a professional person to do, it's about 2,000 ringgit per article. Now it's 3,000, maybe more. Academic proofreaders, they'll go and correct everything. You've got to pay a lot of money, but I think Ref and Write is not very expensive to subscribe. It may not give you the scientifically corrected words or but the language will be corrected, and then you know how to adjust your paper. So Ref and Write is actually a good software because of proofreading. It's a very important element of things. Okay, we'll catch up after maybe tea break. Yeah, okay, thank you. I hope you all had a simple break. So for those of you in which you need some form of language guide, Grammarly, for proofreading, Ref and Write is good. There are also other softwares, but these two are more than sufficient. Now, how do you then design for a poster? How do you put in the text? So once you've corrected the language for each of those sections, remember the template that you have or the PowerPoint you have created. You now transfer the write-up from your worksheet into the poster. So typically a poster template will have a heading. Then there'll be several sections, as you can see in this particular poster. So what you do is you copy and paste the corrected one. What is important to recognize in doing poster is that you need to have a lot of what we call ample white space. White space is the background space. Without the white space, your poster doesn't stick out. If you have the background very dark, most often your text doesn't stick out. So you need a white space. And the more the white space, the more clearer the poster appears. The lesser the white space, the more congested your poster will appear. As a guide, we tend to advocate dividing the space accordingly by text, by graphics, and the white space. So typically, your text would be about 20 to 30%, typically. Not more than that. If your text go beyond that, then it will look like an abstract page where there's nothing beyond just writing. So that's what will appear. So text, you want something about 20 to 30%, and graphics about 30 to 40%. And the remaining is just white space, empty. The white space not necessarily appear white. It can be light blue. Some people like it a little bit greenish. Some people like it a little bit yellow. It's just empty space with no what we call graphics. There are some people will do the background space with some form of motif. You know, you put a logo of your hospital in the shadow. You put a little picture of your specialty in the shadow. This is in the background space. Don't do that, because it will disrupt your poster. So white space is very important. Give your white space about 30 to 40%. Graphics is about 20 to 30%. And text is about 30 to 40%. So you play around with this is very important. And so maybe you want to take a picture of this. So overall, if you look at your poster, it must have certain size for font. And there are many suggested sizes. So typically, your title has to be the largest font. I mean, someone from far must see the title. Now, what does that mean? You cannot have a very long title because the font is very large. So you cannot have a very long title for your poster, because then half your poster is only title. So think about a short one-line title. Don't have a title as if you're writing a full journal article. That means you occupy a lot of space because you want a large font for title. So typically, a title, the font would be about 72 to 96, depending on how many words you have. So the more the words, the smaller the font, the lesser the words, the larger the font. But you want to have a very large font for the title. Authors are also very important. You need to be prominent. People need to see who you are. And typically, authors, we use between 40 to 60, the font size. So the font size is something that will attract the name below the title. Don't let the authors be bigger than the title, right? The font size will follow through, in which you are slightly smaller than the title. And typically, between 40 to 60 points is more than sufficient for authors. The more the authors, the smaller the font. That means how many names go up. Sometimes some posters I see there are about 10 names. Nobody wants to be left out. So you cannot have a lot of space for authorship. So you lose your space in the poster. Next is affiliation. So affiliation, typically you use about 36 to 48 points. Now, affiliation typically will mean hospital or institution. Don't have to put the whole list of address there. So for example, Hospital Putrajaya is only one hospital. You don't need to put Hospital Putrajaya, and then Wilayah Persekutuan. You don't need, there's only one hospital. Hospital Kuala Lumpur is only one hospital, Kuala Lumpur. So you don't need to continue with the address as if that is your institution. Yes, in a publication, that's what happens. But in a poster or oral presentation, everybody knows Hospital Kuala Lumpur is only a single entity. So if you come from the NIH, it's NIH. You want to represent the institute within it, you can. So I'm from IMR, NIH. I understood. You don't need to have Setia Alam, Selangor, no need. Okay? Then there is the section headings. The section headings are very important because it gives you clarity about aims, introduction, the methods, results. So people read through the headings, and you need to have certain visual attraction for that. And so typically headings are about 40 to 80, depending on where you place it. And the most important part is a text. Now in a poster, you don't want to have very tiny text. Typically, we use about 32, 36. The smallest text font you want to use is 24, nothing below 24 for write-up. That means you're writing up on introduction, discussion, and conclusion. The text should be about minimum 24, not less than 24. So 32 is just a nice font size where you have good amount of visual clarity, about 3 to 6 feet away, 32, 36. 3 to 6 feet away, you can read quite clearly the text. You can use a smaller font for acknowledgement. So earlier I mentioned about your ethics approval, acknowledgement to the DG of Ministry of Health. Those kind of the acknowledgement, you can use a smaller font. Nobody needs to have it as a visually readable thing at 3 to 6 feet away, but if you go closer, you know there's an acknowledgement. Your references can be in the smaller font. So acknowledgement references, you'll use as smallest possible for space. About 18 to 24 is fine. So title the largest, authors to follow, headings good, similar to your authors, and subsection a bit smaller, and then text minimum 24. Don't go below 24. Now what about visuals and graphics? Now for posters and oral presentation, you want to prioritize visuals and graphics. You can have lots of words to describe something, but just one image or one graphic explains everything. So you don't need to have a lot of words written up just to describe something that you can put in a visual. So visuals are very, very important, and they are more of a priority when you compare it to text. Text is more important when you do the write-up, a proper journal write-up. But for presentation, you want to have it as visual. I think you heard this morning from Dr. Tong too. You need to be able to convert the whole journal into one page, isn't it? So all of those comes from visuals rather than write-ups. And the typeface is also important. Don't think by putting a certain typeface, you find your poster or your presentation more attractive. Typically, people like to capitalize. Actually, capitalization sometimes is useful for titles. But when you do capitalization, when you do the write-up, it's actually very irritating. You kind of feel like it's not something you want to read, because everything is capitalized. So it's maybe easier if you selectively bold 1 or 2 words rather than capitalizing it. The other thing is about font, is to use a typeface. Typeface is, if you use Times New Roman, stick to Times New Roman. No Times New Roman here, this is Arial, this is Calibri here, Helvetica is there. It's such an irritating thing. People know you have copied and paste. So, make sure you have the same typeface. This is why all the editing you do outside, not on the poster. Do it outside, check, all clean, then you bring it in. Graphs. Graphs are actually very scientific visuals. You need to find the right sort of graphs. I'm just going to show you some examples. When you compare 2 or 3 subjects, bar graphs are very good because you have by the side the comparison. When you want to show a trend, use line graphs because it shows over a period of time. And if you want to talk about proportions, distribution, then pie charts. Simple charts and graphs are very useful, and they explain it very well, because most of us recognize these visuals based on the way that it is presented. So for example, here, gender distribution is very clear. Male, female, you look at the numbers, the percentage. That one visual is sufficient to explain the whole 2-3 lines in a paragraph. All we have to just say is figure 1 shows gender distribution for the total sample of 258. Done. That's it. People can read it. There are females and males. This is a percentage, whatever. So the one visual is enough in that one line. Likewise, you can show trend. I didn't put the values, but they're looking at 2 groups of children. One group of children, babies really, that we nurse for cleft lip and palate with and without intervention to show weight gain over a period of 6 months. So this study that we did showed all you have to demonstrate is a trend. So one graph is good enough to explain, the different time points you have taken the data, to show not only the mean weight but also the the range within each of those weight and see the trend over the duration of the study. So charts are very useful to show trend based on certain parameters you have. Now remember, all your visuals, your charts, your text must attract the audience. I think just now we had a coffee break. I was just trying to see how many people actually went to see a poster. Not many, a few. Partly because you don't feel attracted to a poster. Unless you're forced to go and judge a poster, most people do not actually go and see a poster. So I showed these pictures before. I went to judge this competition. It was an orthodontic meeting in London. So there were about 300 posters over 3 days. And, when they have coffee break, tea break, people will go to the poster, they grab a coffee, and then they walk around and have a sip, read through. So if you're the author, you're there, you wait, somebody to come and question you and maybe answer and say, hi, I'm from Malaysia, and blah, 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 and so on and so forth. But there are some, if you look carefully at the picture, there are some posters, nobody stand in front of the poster. I mean, they're not interested. They just walk past it. And someone have traveled all the way there to display it. And then the tragedy is that nobody bothers, So people must be attracted to view the poster. It's not only creating it, but somebody must be attracted. So there are some colors that stick out, isn't it? Like a sore thing to you, red color, far away I can see. Dark color, I can't see. Text is so small, So you really need to think through what would be attractive enough for the audience when there's so many posters and time is limited. So I had the benefit of taking these two pictures. Sorry if I've taken your pictures, I don't know who you are. I've got no vested interest. But this morning I walked in, I saw a couple of posters. This is here, Whose is this? Anyone? Yeah, hands up. Anyone here? No hands up. But I thought they were quite nice posters, nicely done. So I took a snap of it just to illustrate what a good poster should look like. These are very good examples, at this conference. Just look at it. The title, you look at the text of the title, the heading is large. The distribution of the text and the graphics is about 30, there's an empty space. The so-called white space is more yellow on the left side, and also blue on the right-hand side. So the white space is not white, it's colored. But nevertheless, there is white space. So just these two posters, I felt they were quite okay because the distribution of the text and graphics is quite balanced. And they've given good amount of visuals. So someone who read this poster, they have followed a certain structure. They've got introduction, and the one on the left on your side is a case series. They've outlined the series of a few patients. There is a pictogram depicting what is the study is all about. Then they come to discussion. Most important is there's like a key message there, is it not? Bradycardia, hypotension, chest pain, neurological deficit. So that's a key kind of pointer. And there's a conclusion, and that's reference. I would have preferred the conclusion to have followed the same, horizontal, left to right, left to right. Now the conclusion has gone to the left, and the reference has gone to the right, and then acknowledgement. So perhaps the conclusion could have also been more horizontal. This one, conclusion, horizontal, and then the references and the acknowledgement. But it's a good poster, well done, well, nicely presented. They got some logos of the institution. The authorship is well detailed. And most importantly is this one number there. I don't know if people know NMRR. It is an ethically recognized number. Be proud of the work that, they've got an approved authority to give that number. So that's a very important thing. So make it a habit. Wherever you go, wherever you present, opening slide, put an NMR number. If you come from the Ministry of Health, if you're from outside the Ministry of Health, you're outside, you have some institution, put in the ethical number. Very important. So the slide on the left simply have captured in this poster out there, Nurul Atira and et al. Good job, all right? Now let's look at the other one. Barriers to tuberculosis. Again, quite large title. I don't know what's the number 8225 is all about. Perhaps it's about anniversary of the hospital. I'm not sure. Number the poster, okay. And then there's introduction, methodology, results, discussion, conclusion. So remember I started by saying you read left to right, top to bottom. So ideally, discussion and conclusion should be left to right, top to bottom, left to right, not separated at the end of it, okay? And what is missing there? You don't see the NMR number, I believe. I don't see it, yeah? I don't see it. And what else I see? I see the background, the white, it's a good poster, don't get me wrong. It's a good poster. What do I see? The white space, the so-called white space, has a certain color. It's purplish at the top and dark blue at the bottom. Can you see that? It's a gradient color. Can you see the gradient color? Try not to use that kind of, it's nice to show on a display, but when you look at it, it distracts you. So you don't want that. But good graphics, good use of charts, and key points. So they've got some good visuals, indicating the sample. So they've produced the results nicely, demographic groups. They looked at some figure to explain and also some other outcomes from the study. Good balance in writing. I mean, the text is perhaps about 30, maybe slightly over 30%. They got about 30% or so in graphics, the remaining being in just empty space. Good example of simple and clear posters. Well done to these two. Not to say there are others not, but this caught my eye and I thought I'll share with you. Now compare that with this. This was taken when I was in London. I was asked to judge this, and I rejected this straight away. Because I was looking at Moldova first. Can you see Moldova at the background? You can. Can you see Moldova? Discover life in Moldova somewhere. Can you see the background? Text. So basically, they've used some form of graphics that distracts you. So the white space is very important. Don't put something in the white space. You don't want it. So background graphics are very distracting. So try not to do that. Now, when it comes to images, it is very important to recognize some standards. I know people think that taking photograph with a handphone is good enough. It is not good enough. Your handphone is good, but you need to set it properly. You can follow certain standards to take handphone photograph. Not that you can't. Most of the handphone photographs, if you set it well, you get good clarity, provided you have consent. You don't send your handphone for repair and somebody takes a patient photograph. So you must know how you're going to use it. So it's a device in your hand, so you are responsible. There are consent procedures and processes for it. But images need to be of high quality, both for print and for display. If you don't have high quality for display, then you end up with a fuzzy image. A fuzzy image is because there are many problems with it. Now, for those of you who have an intention to do case reports, especially when you do oral presentation at specialty meetings, you'll have patient pictures and profiles, X-rays, MRIs, CT scans, images. Basic rule, the dots per inch, nothing less than 150, nothing less. Okay? DPI, good quality image. Nothing less than 150. 150 to 300 would be the right sort of image DPI, we call it. More than 300 becomes very heavy. You need big processing to hold a lot of work, but 150 to 300 DPI is just about right. So some people will use about 150. I tend to use 300 DPI. Are you okay? All right, sorry. So just remember images. And how do you recognize this? Remember, even your handphone or your camera, when you download an image, make sure your setting is correct. Because what you view on the screen is what is created for you. What is stored in the data is not what you have. You need to know what you're storing. What you're viewing and what is stored may not be the same. Huh? So you need to set it. So when you take a picture, I'm taking it with this kind of setting. DPI is the most important one, especially doing printed posters, and also for digital displays. Next is file size. For images that you put on poster or you print it out, the resolution should be at least 1 megabyte and above, 1 MB. Most of your handphone photograph, you know what it is? 70, 80. Not megabyte, byte only, okay? But on the screen, you look nice and sharp because the chip of the handphone creates this beautiful image for you. You think you've taken a lovely, beautiful, picture, but it's not. The chip has created this beautiful image for you. The moment you share it, you print it out, said, I didn't think you look so ugly. So you have to think about at least 1 megabyte for higher resolution. Don't go below. And especially if you start to crop it, when you take an image, you only want one area. The more you crop, the smaller the byte becomes. And you can't increase it. So if you don't have a picture with big MB, you'll suffer when you crop it. And sometimes you don't take to standard photography, then how much of cropping can you do? You can't, you see. So for those of you who are preparing for some international meeting or conferences, plan your images carefully because you have no time to go back, call the patient, recreate the sickness. You can't. It's over and finished. When you have the chance, take it properly. You cannot recreate the scenario. So when you have the chance, take it properly. So with consent and proper setting. Now the pixel dimension is also important. What is pixel dimension? Is within the image, how closely are the dots kept together in little pixel, we call it, little rectangular systems. The more the pixels are packed in, the better the clarity. The far away the pixels are, the more diffuse the image will look. So you want a pixel of at least 1600 and 1200. We call it 1600 to 1200. This is for standard prints. So you get high, lovely images, and you sort of keep it, store it in JPEG or PNG. For those of you using linear images, I think Dr. Tong showed earlier, linear images are little arrows that shows one way or other. You can store it in PNG format. No? So when you save images, you must also know what sort of saving mechanism you've used. Why is it important, JPEG or PNG? When you send to the printers, or you are going to print it yourself, when you overlay into your graphs, your template, your picture is not converted into a PowerPoint automatically. Your picture will be overlaid. So when you print it, you modify it to a template like a PDF, your JPEG will run if it's not in JPEG. All right? So don't just put any picture. The printer will always take your picture out and then they will overlay it and then print it again. So the text background and the picture backgrounds are always separate. You follow me? So when you send to the printers, they're printing technically in Word. Technically in Word. Word doesn't automatically print your pictures. It looks nice into your template, but when they print, they'll keep the JPEG separately first. They'll create the Word into a PDF. Then they take the JPEG and they overlay it, and then they print it. You can't just automatically convert it. So the printers will know what to do it. So it's good for them to have it in JPEG. Huh? So there are photographic standards. There are also image standards. For those of you who have exposure to this, you'll know what to do. For those of you who don't have exposure to taking images, you need to have some form of guidance. There are many sites you can learn to take proper clinical photography. It's just not snapping and snapping. It's not just taking a camera and taking a picture. There are certain standards you have to follow. And for those of you who are interested, look up, medical illustrators, medical photographers, and they will tell you what are the settings needed for camera, for handphone, for your x-rays, for your MRI, for your CT scans. There are certain standards. So when you convert one image to another or you download an image, you know what standard you need to meet. So for photography, it's always important that you are seen to not manipulate the patient's picture. A lot of softwares allow you to do that. For example, you see a lot of wedding photographs, the bride and groom only looks very handsome. Have you seen that? They look very pretty, nice skin, no blemishes, perfect, everything perfect, because somebody would have touched up in using software. The lighting is all properly done, so much so you believe, wow, so beautiful. It's all what we call Photoshop, we call it. They'll change here, pick by pick, little dropper. You can't do that for patients. It's illegal. Okay, you can't do that. So your choice is to take it properly the first time. You can't go and try to manipulate. So the change must be because of the disease, before and after, not because you use Photoshop to change it. So that is a standard. So that's what medical photographers will train you to do. So you need to have the proper setting, proper angulation, and so on and so forth. So those of you who are interested, explore it. I did some photography in my younger days. So I take pretty decent pictures. Pretty decent pictures. And good enough for publication. You just look at these two pictures, you know what has happened. Before and after. Nothing has changed. Pure photography. Just before and after, same angle, same size, color has not changed, nothing, no touch up. Just pure and simple. And so learn how to take what you want, use proper photography techniques. You can use handphone now, don't think it's not possible. You need to have proper control. Again, handphones are dangerous if you are not private with it. So make sure, download and delete, erase, whatever. Don't use it to put into Facebook, and that's illegal. You'll be charged for it. The next thing is creating oral presentation out of this. Now, remember you've written for the poster 100 words, 150 words, 100 words, 100 words. So when you come to doing the oral presentation, keep those words. They are your reading notes now. Okay? Reading notes. You don't have to write the 100 notes in your oral presentation slide. The 100 words only go into a poster. For oral, you use that as a reading notes. So whether you do oral or poster, doing the 100 words is still the same. Is it clear? There's no difference. When you do the oral, you read it. When you do the poster, you print it. So that's how you use the 100 words. Now for oral presentation, typically you're given what? 12 minutes, 15 minutes maximum. So if it's for 12 minutes, 15 minutes, the guide is 1 slide per minute. That means 12 minutes, 12 slides. Maximum 15 slides, plus and minus, because you want to put an opening slide and a thank you slide. So 2 extra slides. 1 slide, 1 minute. How you use your 1 minute is up to you. You can introduce in half a minute and save half a minute. Or I can introduce 2 minutes and reduce 1 minute somewhere. So it's how you use your 1 minute. You can't exceed the time. So as a guide, we want to just introduce a subject within 1 minute. So don't start there and say, hi, I'm Kalai, I'm coming from NIH, I'm here to present to you. Nobody's interested. You only have, 30 seconds to 45 seconds to introduce a subject. Straight to the point. Thank you for being here. I'm here to present to you on a study looking at weight gain in children with cleft lip and palate. End of story. How many seconds is that? 20 seconds? That's it. And then you go into the literature. Current studies show that weight gain is a problem, and therefore there's a need to do blah, 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 and so said so. So within that 1 minute, you're able to tell the audience, this is what you're here to present. 1 minute. And that 1 minute, you'll be surprised, you can speak about 100 words. If you remember, you wrote the 100 words, your mind will start to click the 100 words. You didn't write the 100 words, there's no 100 words. Okay? So 100 words, when you write, it's in your mind. Somehow it'll come to you. You just need a trigger. And the trigger is the sentence you create. 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines, that's it. A trigger, all right? So the 100 words, if you're not sure, is in front of you, you can read it. Methods are typically only delivered for what? A minute and a half. So by the time you are about 3 minutes into the presentation, you've done the introduction, you've done the methods, 3 minutes. Giving you about another 2 to 3 minutes to present the results. Presenting results are important. People want to know results. So you spend another 2 to 3 minutes presenting the results, giving you the remaining 3 to 4 minutes to finish your discussion and conclusion. This is something you have to rehearse, practice. Set a timer and start. Start a timer and start. If you don't do it by a timer, sometimes you lose the time. You don't want the chair to ring a bell, ting, 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 ting. Have you heard this? They keep reminding you, your time is up, and you think, I'm only in methods now, you know. And suddenly you want to talk about results, suddenly you want to conclude. You know what I mean? Because you haven't kept to time. So remember this, introduction 1 minute, methods, results 2 to 3 minutes, then present the result for another 2 to 3 minutes. You give yourself about 5 minutes so that you have time for discussion, time for conclusion, and you want to add 1 or 2 additional bits, go ahead. So this is a good kind of thing. And you only have 3 minutes for Q&A. 3 minutes for Q&A. Most conferences don't allow you more than 3 minutes, sometimes 5 minutes. So anticipate some question and pre-prepare your answer. Pre-prepare some form of answers ready in your mind. You're very certain somebody's going to ask you this question, all right? Or you're likely to have this kind of question. Have some form of preparedness, we call it. No? I'm not going to describe this, but essentially for oral presentation, no different than your poster presentation. You need to have a title slide, you need to have the name, affiliation, and professional header. What's a professional header image? Remember the poster earlier, hospital logo, CRC logo. These are our professional header. You can use it. For the introduction slide, just briefly, you mention the review and a problem statement. So introduction slide, usually you need 2 lines, 2 major lines. Something about the literature, 1 reference, and something about your problem statement, 1 line. So in 1 introduction slide, you should capture the gist of it. In the methods, in an oral presentation, you straight away go into the detail of the study. You will describe, this is a randomized controlled trial in which there were 1,000 over patients randomized into group A, group B. The inclusion exclusion criteria was this, and we followed a protocol set by so-and-so. People understand that. You don't have to describe the method in detail because there's a reference. It's good to give a reference for your method. If you use a cohort study, if you use a questionnaire-based study, then you say, look, we use an instrument, validated, and this is published in this particular journal, reference given. So audience will know if they want to have that particular questionnaire, they have to look at the journal. You don't have to spend time explaining the questionnaire, all right? That's what it means in an oral presentation. It's also important, especially for presentation in which you want to validate your own results, to mention about statistical analysis. So without statistical analysis, sometimes you cannot make conclusion based on statistics. So at least 1 or 2 lines, or we use a Fisher-Ezek test, or we use Cronbach analysis, or we use odds ratio, or we use correlation to describe this, you know? So you want to mention your stats, or you just say, look, this was just based on percentage and on proportions. Just, so be it. Mention it, that you are looking at data and you're going to analyze it. So the methods usually use 1 to 2 slides. 1 to 2 slides, okay? Introduction, 1 slide. Background of the study, 1 slide with a problem statement, so 2 slides gone. Methods, 2 slides. 4 slides finished, right? So you have 8 more slides to go. Remember 12 minutes, huh? 8 more slides to go. You've got to think about what am I going to do with 8 more slides. So usually if you have a study design, very elaborate design, then you create a flow chart and put it in a flow chart as a slide. And so you now have a 3rd slide for method in which the timeline is explained. So you finish 5 slides. Any more slides to go? 7 more slides. 7 more slides to do what? Report your results, present the result, discuss, and then conclude. So you now make adjustments, you see. You cannot say, keep on increasing slide number. Remember, your time limited. So try methods 2, if not 3 slides. So results, you only present key findings, not the entire study. A lot of people think that it is important to present the entire study in that limited time. That's not the purpose of a presentation. Because here you're trying to focus on a key message. You're not here to present the entire study. So present key findings. What did you actually find in your work? And then use graphs and tables to describe that. While you have the graph and table, remember your 100 words you prepared? You remember the 100 words by heart? You read your 100 words by heart? The audience will think you're the expert because you already have it all nice and covered. So writing 100 words is the key here because you remember the text. And so the delivery becomes much more easier. And when there is something important, significant, highlight it, bold it, and show it. So earlier you saw one of the posters, they had a red line there. I'm not a fan of red color, but anyway, but they highlighted what they want. Likewise, you can highlight it. What you do in discussion for oral presentation, you just interpret the result in one line. Your entire presentation, you interpret in one line, and then you compare with existing literature. Now you will have another reference that you'll do, then followed by another slide on discussion and limitation. You finish your quota of 4 slides, you are left with 1 more slide, maybe 2. So you can then suggest a conclusion slide, okay? In which you summarize in 1 sentence your finding. Then if you got time, move on to references and acknowledgement and ethical approval. But if you don't have time, you thank the audience and then you display the slide, all right? You thank the audience and you display the slide, the references, acknowledgement, and ethical approval. So the art of oral presentation is about using your time with 12, 13, maximum 15 slides, nothing more than that. Beyond that, it's like you're doing a 100-meter race, and you keep on moving a slide, and the audience is not catching up with you. Don't overdo your slide numbers. Limit the numbers, speak clearly, lesser the words, the better the presentation. So what font would you use for oral presentation? Typically for oral presentation, the title, remember the suggested font size, this is size 44 to 54. Earlier for poster, 72 to 96, right? For oral slide presentation, this is a standard size. What you're seeing at the top there is 44. What you're seeing at the top there is 44. And for each line here is 32. So the audience at the back there, they can see clearly. Likewise, the audience in front can see clearly. All right, so the font size for title is about 44 to 54. So don't have too wide a title heading for each slide. Keep it minimum 44 to 54. Use font size of 32. This is 32. You can put 36 a bit bigger, but I'm comfortable with 32. Use standard font, the typeface. Here it is Times New Roman. Some people like Arial, some people like Calibri, but sharp line angles. So this being a digital display, it still displays a sharp angle. We call it the typeface is sharp. It's not fuzzy, right? Don't use all this artistically created text for you in the print. No, that's not the intent. You want to have sharp typeface. Concise lines. Per slide, try not to do more than 5 lines. This is 5 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 lines. Can you see 5 lines? Typically, you want to have 3 lines. Maximum 5 lines. Don't create more than this. Some people create something like 20 lines. You know, it's like a whole paragraph in 1 slide. 5 lines. 3 to 5 lines. And that's all you need, because the rest of it is for you to read. You want the audience to look at you when you speak, not to read from the slide. Some of you will do that. Create all the text there so that the audience can read the slide. That's not the intent. Oral presentation, just a key message you are delivering here. They must look at you So that is the point of delivery. Now, for presenting slides, oral presentation, the visuals of your slides are very, very important. So likewise in poster, the color that you choose to describe a slide is very important. So this is a good example. What you see is a white background. What else is there? The text is all in black. I've intentionally put here green, red, and blue at the bottom. Intentionally put in red, green, and blue to tell you not to mix colors unnecessarily, okay? So 3 lines per slide, 44, 32, and simple text. Now, if you look at the white background and the dark color, it's actually very clear. It is not distracting. And this I've shown you many times. Look at the top and bottom. I've shown this many times. Which is sharper in your eye? Bottom or top? Which white? White in black or black in white? White in black. So white in black is sharper. Exactly. So if you're in a lighted space as what you are now, this is sharper. The bottom is sharper. So white space, ample white space is important. But if in a dark room, then white becomes much more sharper. Okay? So the choice of your background color becomes very critical for oral presentation. And I'll just show you 2 examples. This is background, written up, white background, black text, blue background, white text. Same font. So if you go to UK, Europe, mostly people use blue background. If you go to, most part of this, our part of the world, people like to go and do it this way. Can you see the difference? Which one you all prefer? This one. I thought so. Yeah, so the choice of your background color is also very critical. Don't just simply choose any color, because this is sharper, much more clearer compared to this, right? Not this. You don't like, this is why I say I don't like red, I don't like, not me, but I think most of you don't like. Most of you won't like this also. So the choice of background color is very, very important. Why you're irritated by it, right? Yeah, I'll turn it off. So the choice you choose is also very critical for oral presentation. So you don't want the audience to look at you and think, you don't want that. You want them to concentrate on your presentation without being distracted by the background color. Just simple choice of color can be very disruptive. So choose this. The second thing is gradient. Don't try to create gradients. Remember the slide earlier I showed you? The poster had purple and then went down all the way to dark blue. That is gradient. Don't do that. It's nice to show at home photography, playing around with PowerPoint, but for presentation, have a clean background. Don't try to create gradients. They're quite distracting, they strain your eye, and you won't like it. And so it makes it very difficult for the audience to concentrate on what you're trying to present. Now, again, graphics for oral presentations are very important. The most important graphics will be result. All right? The most important graphics will be result. And for that, you need to know how to create some simple tables. Sometimes if you have clinical cases, have good picture. If you have a visual reproduction, have that nice and sharp. I always tell this, avoid 3D reproduction. I know, images can be created in 3D. Even charts, you'll stick out like a 3D. I see some of the posters there got 3D. It is nice to show and present, yes, but for business meeting, yes. They show, profit margin, little chunk of it to come up from a little pie and so on and so forth. Nice to show, but for scientific presentation, it's all about sharing facts and figures, and it's not about artistic value of your chart. It's about the factual content of the chart. So Unnecessary. If it's necessary, show it. If unnecessary, don't create everything in 3D, especially charts. There are bar charts, three-dimensional bar chart. You're not sure whether you're looking at the 3-dimension or looking at the proportion. You know how it looks sometimes. Huh? So I give an example. This was from a publication. I mean, at one of the meetings I went, I think. So lots of figures here. Imagine showing these in an oral presentation, and you want the audience to focus on perhaps the p-value that is highlighted in red. But then why have so many values in black that nobody's going to look at? You know what I mean? So if the focus is only on the p-value of a couple of variables, then perhaps you should bring it together and bring in a simple chart, because you're going to speak about it anyway. So when you do oral presentation, don't recreate your chart as if that is a result that you must display. That is not the purpose of a chart. It's only to deliver key points and key messages. So try and focus on what you intend. This is an example. I presented this a long time ago. Just 3-4 lines, enough to tell what I wanted to tell. Where I can talk about the p-value, the ratio, blah, 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 but based on a narrative. The narrative is what I deliver. I'm not recreating another 10 lines and 4 columns or 5 columns just because I have the data. It's only about what your message is. So when you have charts, make sure that you create simple, clear charts. Don't overdo, as this example, don't overdo your charts. Because the audience do not need to be overwhelmed with data. You have, 1 minute per slide, and what you want to speak from 1 minute on one slide, unless that is a whole study. It's a different matter, right? So be sure of what you want to say. The next thing is the final little bit about how you do some of this oral presentation is to know that you go through a certain checklist of knowing about the validity of your findings. So sometimes, for certain study design, it's good to know that a certain checklist has been checked. You can use, for example, STROBE. STROBE is a good standard. This is for your own preparation, that you've covered all these elements in your presentation. So use that as a checklist. Have I covered this? Have I covered that? Have I covered this? And so you can download STROBE. There are many studies, whether it's a case report or cross-sectional study, what are the elements you need to present? So the STROBE gives you that element. I need to have this in the title. I must have this in the method. I must have this, so that your presentation can be tidied up. So at the end of your presentation, get a checklist and check, have I covered this, have I covered that? And once you've covered, then you know that your presentation is up to a certain standard. So when you present, you meet that standard, not something that you think and that is a standard. Is it something helpful? Then please, by all means. And STROBE is good because a lot of you will come from this area of study. Clinical trials, I think they're a very specific way of delivering, but many will do cohort studies, case reports, case control studies. So STROBE checklist is actually very useful for you to know whether you've met the criteria for the presentation. And some publications want you to have a statement. So at some point, you're going to publish your work. So checking through STROBE early is actually quite useful. You can download this. It's made available free, and you can use this to check. Trust me, you learn so much by just using a guide like this. You'll be surprised. So many elements you miss out because you don't think about it. You think you've done the right presentation, but when you check, you say, oh, I've missed this, I've missed that. How do I do that? I need to bring it back. So maybe you can't put in the slide, you have to put in the write-up. Some guidance is given to you. Remember, presentation is about you, your work, and it's based on science, facts, and data. Whatever you say is recorded and is presented, so make sure you have certain standard. Huh? Okay, what happens once you've finished preparing the slides? You need to do something we call a peer review. This is the most challenging part of a peer review. Peer review is most people tend to be very secretive about their presentation. They don't share their work because they think they've done it very well. or they don't want to tell their colleagues they're going for a meeting to present a paper. So peer review is something that you learn. I learned it when I was in UK. You can't go to a presentation in your department without presenting to your department first. Have to present first. And they will specify a time. Okay, we have a lunch meeting. Mr. Peariasamy is going to present his presentation. That's going to present at the BSPD. 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, coffee and donuts are presented. Please come. Everybody will come. If you don't clear that, you can't go and present the meeting. The head of department, the other specialists, they all get free coffee and donut. You know, it's very common to get free coffee and donut. And you will be given the opportunity to present, and everyone is open to criticize or recommend or change. This is how you learn. So you think you've done everything, gone through the checklist, you look all perfect, and somebody in the audience will notice, said, I don't think this is correct. This is not right. You know, you're quoting some reference that's not the meaning. So they can help you to navigate these issues. And also, it's useful because when they ask questions, you are in a position to answer. For the first time somebody questioned your presentation, it's easier to answer your colleagues rather than an unknown audience. So peer review process is a critical step, especially going for international meetings, national meetings. Make time. Spend a bit of coffee or tea or teh tarik and buy some nasi lemak or something for your colleagues and take time. When would you do a peer review? At least 1 week before the meeting, at least 1 week. Give yourself that, closer to the conference time, closer, so that you have time to make any modification, changes, and revert back. Not 3 months before the meeting and then you forget entirely all those things. Closer to the meeting, 1 week before, have that presented. Take some questions, and you cannot answer some question, at least you can go home and read up and prepare something, and you know what is the preparation needed for that. For those of you coming from MOH, I think most of you are, there's also a guideline in getting approval for your presentation. Okay? Don't neglect that. It's a very important step. Your research may sometimes be done with what we call just secondary data, and you have registered it. But you are now going to present the data. Make sure you get approval for the presentation. There's a formal process for it. Please look up the guideline. Why is this important? Particularly when you have a presentation outside of the country. Make sure you are not in conflict of any policy matters or fundamental things that the ministry does. You are not the spokesman for the ministry, trust me. You're only a presenter. So when you indulge in presentation that touch on policies and fundamental matters and guidelines, you are not the authority. And so there can be repercussions in which you don't want to be answerable without some form of a process that somebody has vetted your abstract, your presentation. So the guideline is very clear on this, very explicit. Make sure you get approval. They are not very difficult. Trust me on this. Submit it ahead of time. Most of you will submit your abstracts for conference, 6 months before the conference? So, you have ample time to get that approval. So submit it, get your approval status, and that is your security license. In the event something is questioned, at least you can rely on approval status. Right? Sometimes be aware that they may suggest not to remark on policy matters, and your approval may not come through. Don't be disappointed. That is within the system. You are working within a system where you are perhaps not the authority to discuss on policy issues, and you shouldn't be talking about it at that point of a meeting. You could have other opportunities, certainly, to make that clear. So for those of you who are MOH, make sure that you are able to get this approval. Now, I think in the past, we also helped, I think CRC, I'm not sure whether they still have it, may have it, I'm not sure. But there are some sort of guidelines parked in the website. For those of you who are interested how to do writing, how to prepare illustration, there's still good information available. You can go and explore it and click it and see whether it is made available. I haven't checked recently, maybe it's not there, but if it's there, there are plenty of resourceful things that you can do. Right, just a final little bit. on presentation tips. Yeah, so this is, so when you actually are on stage, you're given the 15 minutes to present, try as much as possible, don't read from notes. That means you don't put a note prepared in front of you and you flip it. To time with your slides. Now, if you have prepared your 100 words for each section, 100 words for introduction, methods, and results, technically, you just need a trigger point, as I mentioned earlier, and then you should speak in an active language. And reading is about putting out a written note. And putting out a written note is no different than speaking to an audience. You're already given a newspaper outside. You know, you read newspaper. What you read is the same thing, right? So I'm going to read the notes like I read newspaper. What is so special about reading it? Nothing. So you don't want to read from notes. It's only to guide you. And don't make it a habit of reading from notes because you can't have eye contact. And oral presentation is about eye contact. If you don't have that, then really you're not talking to the audience. And you must also practice your presentation time. Most softwares that allow presentation, they have a mode we call a presenter mode. And if you set it to 15 minutes, the clock will start the moment you start the first slide. So you learn how to rehearse before you go. And usually when you do this, 2 to 3 days before the actual day, 2 to 3 days before the actual day, you already started the finalization of your presentation. You're very clear on the timeline. Remember, 1 to 2 slides per minute. 1 to 2 slides per minute. 10 minutes, 10, 12 slides. 15 minutes, 15, 16 slides. Rehearse that. Now, delivering an oral presentation. I know it sounds easy, but fidget. This is a major problem among most presenters. Fidget means you come here and then you start to adjust your shirt, put your hands in pocket, suddenly you adjust your tie, you know. Fidget. And when you first start presenting, you're not sure how loud I should speak, how soft I should speak. Mumble. You're uncertain. Do I throw my voice or I don't throw my voice? This is a problem for most oral presenters. So how do you deliver this part? So you need to know the hall. You need to enter the room to know how big is a room, how small is a room. So when you go for meetings and conferences, don't assume it's coming from your same department, little peer review, little corner of your hospital. No, it's not like that. There's a huge audience here. So if you're unable to throw the voice or the PA system doesn't give you the clarity, so you have to have the experience, go in early, have a look, have a feel. Then you know how much of voice throw you come in, so you don't come in mumble. See? And it's important that when you deliver, we started this morning by looking, should I look at the screen or should I tap here? Is to avoid this unnecessary trouble of you coming here prepared to present. I don't have a slide. I'm going to look here, next slide, next slide, next slide. Have you seen this happen? It happens. It happens because your delivery is based on what you've written in the slide, not written in your mind or written in the little bit of notes you have practiced. So you can't engage the audience. So don't do this. Don't come and fidget and mumble or talk around and I'm not sure. And talking to the screen, you know, talking to the screen. Huh? So learning how to use a remote, as simple as it seems, sometimes is important. Forward, backward, pointer. Even this, I struggled this morning because the pointer was so fine. It shined here, but it shined there, I can't see. So it happens. Next is a smile and eye contact. How do you initiate a smile and eye contact? So I don't know whether you recognize, I mentioned 3 names today. I mentioned Dr. Nora Ain because I know her. I know her eyes. I can look at her. I mentioned Mohan, who was seated there. There you go, he's there. And then I mentioned Dr. To. She was there. I didn't mention any of you. I didn't know your names, maybe. But when you're doing oral presentation, it's important to be engaged with people you know, at least 1 or 2 people. Make sure you have eye contact with them. So you know you're engaged. You're not alone. So at least have some acquaintance, some friend, some co-worker, a colleague, seated somewhere in the audience that you can put your eye. In the moment that you feel that you're pressed, you are indeed in need of attention, you know where to seek attention. Trust me, this is very important, simple things. By just looking at her, it will calm me down. I know she's there, and I know her, and I know Mohan. I can quote his name. So smile and eye contact doesn't just happen. You must make it happen. It doesn't just happen. You must make it happen. So you must know one or two people, at least engage them before the meeting, say hi over coffee. I'm going to speak at the next session. Can you come sit in front? This kind of conversation, very important. Most of you don't do that. You go out, have a coffee, you talk to your friends, and then you come to the meeting room, presenting room. Everybody's so different. Then you start to mumble, all right? Speak confidently, okay, and clearly. So what does it mean? You need to pause when you speak. Breathe. Pause and breathe. Don't have a narrative like a diarrhea, Pause. Why is it important? I don't know whether when iPhone was launched, the way they did the delivery there's a lot of empty sound and moments of emptiness and suddenly an appearance. So giving gap when you present makes it all the worthwhile to wait. So when your results are coming up, give it some time. The pause of waiting, so anticipation. So people want to know, I've said something, hey, let's look at the result. What is going to present? So giving you space is important in oral delivery. Speak with confidence. What it means to speak with confidence? It means you know your subject. Know your subject. This is why the 5 papers you read is so critical. Know your subject. You don't read the 5 papers, you quote the references, you do not know sufficiently about the subject, you don't have the confidence, especially when people in front of you are ahead of you. If you're a medical officer, you're a junior pharmacist, a young dentist, and a senior specialist sitting around, there's your professor sitting here, somehow, you feel the tiniest at that moment because people are so much more experienced than you. But you are meant to be the expert. But I can be the expert if I've read the 5 papers because I can see eye to eye with you now. This is what it means. So you can be confident if you know your subject. Don't go and present without knowing your subject. Know it, read the 5 papers, and you can speak clearly. Do not be afraid of questions. I think in Malaysia we should reverse this. Do not be afraid of asking questions. Most of our audience don't ask questions, right? But you go overseas in many of the meetings, they will ask questions. They ask questions to question your validity of your study. They'll question the results that you have interpreted. They can ask. They're not there to humiliate you, or they're not there to make fun of you. They too want to learn from you. Is this something that they see and you see? So asking questions is normal. 2 weeks ago, I was attending a meeting not me, my son was there for the meeting. He's a lawyer. He was presenting at an international meeting of publication, international publication. This is a live presentation of a paper. So the reviewers are there and they want you to engage live. So review is live rather than written. So they actually have a live review. All the reviewers are senior legal practitioners and barristers, and there you go, 4 or 5 people, and audience. So he was presenting an abstract, but the review was live. Now, we don't have the benefit in most of our scientific conferences. We have the benefit of questions. So you have to be able to answer these questions. Now, how do you answer a question where you cannot answer? That's the biggest problem. So there's a way to do this. The first thing you say is, well, thank you for the question. Thank them for the question. Thank you for the question. I'm happy that you have noted these points in the presentation. Unfortunately, I'm unable to answer you now because I don't have the data. Or rather, I need to discuss with my team and come back to you later. Without answering the question, I've addressed the question. All these things just doesn't happen. You have to practice for it. So someone asks a question, don't say, no, there's no answer. Very rude. It happens, Some people say, can you repeat the question, please? Can you repeat the question? No, I don't think I spoke about that. They are very confrontational. It's very confrontational. No, you don't want that kind of style. So don't be afraid of questions. It's good that people ask questions, meaning they've heard your presentation. If you cannot answer the question, by all means, thank them for the question. And you may suggest, well, we may want to study this in our data again. We're going to relook at the data and perhaps then come back to you. And by the way, do you have an answer for it? You can ask them. You can tell them you have an answer for it. Maybe you can share your experience with us, and we can learn from that. So what matters about question is about engagement with the audience. Now, final little bit, 2 more slides, and then I think I'll stop it. At the meeting, this is important. So when you go to present an oral presentation, unlike poster, once it's up and displayed, you can disappear. You don't need to appear by the poster. The digital board will be there and the poster will be there on display. But you are not there necessarily physically. You don't need to be there standing by your poster full time. This is me writing. But when it comes to oral presentation, you are here. There is no AI version for me. You are here, you're here, right? So make sure you do up your hair properly. Put a little bit of makeup. Why? Because of the lighting sometimes. I mean, the little things, clean your glasses, make sure you have tidy up your tie, wear a nice pair of clothes, if you have a scarf, keep it nice and tidy. Put a little bit of badge if you have a hospital logo. Display yourself well. But do not distract the audience with how unwell you are dressed. So what I mean is be formal, be simple, be attired for it. Do not go there and make a scene out of your presence, especially by being irritable. What are the most irritable things we do? Have you heard that? Because it happens. And some people come and they'll sit there and they keep on fidgeting and this thing and that. Don't do that. Most conferences, they are set up. You pace yourself. You go forward and backward. Just adjust yourself. And the next thing is your hands. Don't show that you are trembling here. Just hold the podium. Put a leg up. Nobody sees your leg behind the podium. Just hold the podium. I've seen presenters trying to shake even the podium. Happens. So you are on display for that moment, right? So be comfortable, sit there, take a breather, and make sure your slide is on display. Once you start, how do you start actually? Some people say, how do I just start? So most people, and the second point I think she was trying to deliver was in between the visuals. She said something, her colleagues were never regarding visuals as important. But then there was this presentation somebody had to do. See, what she was trying to do was engaging you in a problem that might come to you. Experienced speakers will know how to do this. So at the meeting, likewise, you need to have that little bit of engagement with the audience. Otherwise, the audience don't look at you. All right? So limit the jargon. Jargon means in a mixed audience, there are all sorts of people from different backgrounds. Then don't use very hi-fi terminology that describe your specialty only. Describe my specialty only. So half the audience will shut down because they did not know. So you need to be quite clear of the terminology, but you see Dr. Norain is presenting at the endocrinology meeting, she won't need to speak in general terms. She need to speak in specific terms because they are not interested in common terms. They're interested in specific terms. But you're talking a mixed audience, then make sure you have good command of that general terminology. Right, last 2 slides and then I'll finish. So this is me when younger days. I always like to show my slide, This I spoke at the Royal College of Physicians of London. I was invited to speak here, representing Malaysia, thank goodness for that. But I remember the first time I've spoken here, the audience are mostly people who taught me before, big-time authors, and then I'm here to speak in front of this big audience. I remember panicking for a lot. But this morning I've gone through a few processes. I started by telling you, write first, create your key message, create the graphics, create the Then at the end of the day, you realize you're no different than most people there, So it's not that difficult, even at the highest level of presentation, to be able to present well. It's not that difficult. Prepare in advance. So how do you prepare? So 8th Research Day, Kuala Lumpur. How long ago was the abstract time frame?
About 3 weeks.
No, submission deadline.
Oh, submission deadline. That was in mid-August.
Okay. So you already submitted your abstract mid-August. So now is end of September. So you had 4 weeks in between, right? Submission of abstract to presentation here is 4 weeks. So for most local meetings, 1 month is fine to prepare. 3 days of write-up, okay, cleaning up another 1 or 2 days. By the first week, you should have your slides or posters sort of ready. The second week is for your peer review. Third week is to brush up your presentation. And then by the final week, you are ready to come here all excited. Yeah, 4 weeks. For a national meeting, 3 months. Local meeting, 1 month. For a national meeting, 3 months. Why 3 months? Well, most national meetings, they give you, 6 months in advance for abstracts to be submitted? Okay, 6 months. And why is it important for 3 months? Because here, you're looking at a bigger audience. Most local meetings, the crowd is more local. I mean, if it's WPKL and Putrajaya, you know the audience is only going to come from this little catchment area, mostly. A national meeting, Sabah, Sarawak, North, South, East, West, Singapore, maybe. So you have a bigger mixture of population. So the level of attendees are going to be very different. So here you're talking to your own familiarized people. There you're going to speak to not so familiar people. 3 months. If you're going for an international meeting, 6 months. Most international meetings, they'll close the abstract by 6 months or a year even. That means 2026 meeting, they will close this year. Most international meetings are like that. So giving yourself about a year to prepare. You don't think 1 year is such a long time. Huh? Because if you're chasing images, good quality write-ups, it takes about a year. And most of these international meetings, the abstracts will go into publication. They will have a referenceable publication. I think most of our local meetings don't. So today I went through an example of how you retrieve, clean, and create a abstract, because that will go into publication. Most meetings will publish it. There's a referenceable abstract. So that is why you need the 1 year. Okay? So you need a year to prepare for it so that you are able to compare your publications with something that is referenceable. So WPKL does not have a referential abstract, correct? Not yet. Most national meetings may have, but may not have a reference. Most international meetings will have a reference. So you need to prepare properly for it. So this is why you need a year, and by the time you come to a conference, you are more than ready for it. Okay, so once everything is done, I always like to put this up, finish and enjoy, and your journey for oral, the poster is done. I know for most of you, it's like this. If I remember how things happen, I've gone to judge many oral and posters. I'll start with those people who come to present posters. Most of you will come to the conference, display the poster, and then go shopping. Because you're not expected to be by the side of the poster, right? Those who do oral presentation, they'll come and upload the presentation, they still go out somewhere, and then just about 10 minutes before the presentation, they walk into the room, and they hope everything is in correct order. Now, these are the two things that are very commonly practiced by many people. Why? Because somehow you think the presentation is just an exercise, right? It's an exercise because you're funded to attend a meeting because you're given, if you present, you get funding sometimes, to attend. Some people present because your KPI, I want to present. You don't count it as being so important. But over the years, I've learned many things. If you present at a meeting really well, someone will knock your door and ask you to be a collaborator, co-investigator. So you come from a research fraternity, that's what you want. You should be able to sell your research ideas or findings to someone who will knock your door. And for those of you doing clinical research especially, you need to have a network of people to work with. So when it comes to looking at studies, multi-center studies, you want people not only from around your fraternity, but outside of your fraternity. So take effort, whether it's oral or poster, to have that kind of engagement. That is your personal gain. So that as a researcher, you have somebody to knock your door. Until today, I have that opportunity. I still go and present internationally. I still do multi-center studies. I still do a lot of editorial work. It's because of that. You have to get yourself known outside of your little small circle. And where does that come? This kind of meetings. Giving you the platform. Nobody gives the platform. You know, somebody's given you the platform. Use it. Once you're given the choice, use it well. Get yourself exposed. People know you for something, and they'll knock your door. And that's how you advance your career. I think that would be the thing that I would like to ask you to do from listening from start to finish, I hope. Is that good enough? Yeah, so thank you very much. So any question, I'm more than happy to answer.
Before we take any questions, I just wanted to ask Dr. Kalai. Recently, I heard